Beijing rejects reports that China is negotiating with the U.S. over the tariff war. New Shenzhou space mission launched successfully this afternoon. The Wall Street Journal reported Washington is considering whether to lower tariffs it earlier slapped on China. But U.S. Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent stressed Washington does not intend to reduce the tariffs unilaterally. Meanwhile, Beijing's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said no bilateral negotiations on tariffs have taken place between the two countries. Timothy Lee tells us more.
A report by the Wall Street Journal indicated U.S. President Donald Trump's administration is considering whether to massively reduce tariffs on Chinese imports in a bid to cool down tensions between the two countries. The tariffs are set to drop from the current 145% to between 50 and 65%. The U.S. may institute a tariff policy on Chinese products according to various classifications, with goods related to national security subject to a higher tax. U.S. President Trump responded to the WSJ report.
How soon do you want to bring the tariffs on Chinese goods?
Well, that depends on them. We get along. I get along very well with President Xi, and I hope we can make a deal. Otherwise, we'll set a price, and hopefully they'll come here and they'll contribute. And if they don't, that's okay.
Meanwhile, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent denied Washington will reduce the tariffs unilaterally, adding any changes in its tariff policy will require negotiations with China. Regarding recent news emerging from the U.S. on Sino-U.S. trade talks, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs described them as fake news. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Jiakun said there are no ongoing negotiations between the two parties, adding the trade conflict was provoked by Washington and China is willing to fight to the end. He stressed any talks between the two nations must adhere to the principles of mutual respect and equality. In the United States, Trump's tariff policy is facing internal opposition, as 12 states including New York, Delaware, and Arizona sued the U.S. president over the policy. They claimed the president illegally invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which exceeded presidential authority.
These tariffs are unlawful. They're chaotic and harmful to the hardworking families and businesses that make our state thrive. And they are not just numbers on a page. They are real costs in all of our wallets, your workplace, and all of our future.
Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Meantime, President Xi Jinping met with Kenyan President William Ruto, during which he reiterated his criticism of trade wars, adding there are no winners in a trade war. President Xi said both countries will set an all-weather China-Africa community model and further boost Sino-African relations and solidarity with the Global South. President Xi emphasized China does not provoke conflicts and is willing to cooperate with the global community to tackle any challenges. China has successfully sent the Shenzhou 20 manned spaceship into orbit following its launch late this afternoon. The 3 astronauts on board are expected to complete an in-orbit rotation with the Shenzhou 19 crew and stay at the Tiangong space station for roughly 6 months. Danny Zhou tells us more.
Hundreds of local residents gathered at the launch base Thursday afternoon to bid farewell to the 3 members of the Shenzhou 20 mission. The astronauts, dressed in white spacesuits, waved to the crowd before boarding a bus to the launch pad in Jiuquan, which is on the edge of the Gobi Desert in northwestern China. Chen Dong, a veteran astronaut and the mission commander, got aboard the spaceship with the help of technicians. He was followed by 2 crewmates, Chen Zhongrui and Wang Jie, who are making their first trip to space. The Long March 2F rocket carrying the trio to the Tiangong space station blasted off from the Jiuquan satellite launch base at 5:17 p.m.
3, 2, 1,
This is China's 15th crewed spaceflight. During the mission, the 3-person crew will undertake a wide range of tasks, including space science experiments, application tests, spacewalks, and cargo handling. They are tasked with installing protective devices against space debris, as well as deploying and retrieving extravehicular payloads and equipment. The astronauts will participate in science education and public outreach activities, and they also brought planarians, flatworms with regenerative abilities, to the space station for the very first time. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
Ahead of the launch of Shenzhou 20, an epic drone show was staged at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwest China last night. An array of 1,000 drones lifted off from the Dongfanghong 1 launch pad in the sunset yesterday evening. They painted the night sky with brilliant milestones of the country's space exploration, offering a visual feast for spectators. The colorful formations featured the historic launch of Dongfanghong 1, China's first satellite, the Shenzhou astronauts, as well as the Chang'e lunar exploration missions. The event was to celebrate the 10th Space Day of China, which falls on Thursday. Today is the 10th Space Day of China. A Chinese astronaut said he hopes to see more young people joining the aviation industry. Some 70 secondary and primary schools in Hong Kong and the mainland have formed an aerospace education school network. They co-hosted the 10th China Aerospace Day in a secondary school in Cheung Wan today. 20 little astronauts were selected out of thousands of students from Suzhou and Hong Kong after online learning and interviews. They said they hope to become astronauts in the future. Shen Qinyun, captain of the astronaut brigade of the Chinese People's Liberation Army, said he hopes more young people can join the aviation industry while schools can provide better science education. Ballots were drawn today for the Housing Authority's White Form Secondary Market Scheme. Successful applicants will be able to purchase secondhand subsidized flats. Samantha Lee has details.
第一個號碼係49。
There are 6,000 slots for this year's White Form Secondary Market Scheme. The ballots drawn determine the applicants' priority based on the last two digits of their application numbers. The first 10 numbers drawn were 49, 35, 39, 85, 77, 76, 32, 21, 38, and 24. The Housing Authority received some 34,000 applications, 5 times oversubscribed. The applicants are white form holders who generally live in the private market and fulfill certain income and assets requirements. For example, the monthly income limit for a single person shall not exceed $30,000 and $60,000 for 2 or more persons. Over 80% came from young applicants aged below 40. This year, an additional quota of 1,500 homes were dedicated for young adults on top of the 4,500 general quota. This is intended to help young residents pursue home ownership.
The demand for this type of flats among young people is still very strong. It is a bit confusing to think that young people will only be able to share the 1,500 new quotas. This is not the case. They can also share the 4,500 quotas for ordinary applicants, but they have an additional 1,500 quotas, which will be shared by these young people.
As to whether the authorities will increase the quotas for young adults in the future, Wang said they will consider after assessing the response this year. Successful applicants will receive approval letters in the 3rd or 4th quarter of this year. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
Still ahead, Chief Executive John Lee witnesses signing of memorandum to improve Hong Kong's cooperation with Zhejiang. Former Korean President Moon Jae-in is indicted on bribery charges. And Donald Trump criticizes Volodymyr Zelensky for prolonging the Ukraine war. Welcome back. Chief Executive John Lee continued his visit to Zhejiang, where he oversaw the signing of a memorandum to establish a partnership mechanism between Hong Kong and Zhejiang province. During the afternoon, he went to Ningbo to visit local tech firms and Hong Kongers who've set up businesses in the city. Timothy Lee reports.
Stepping into the third day of his trip in Zhejiang province, Chief Executive John Lee met with Zhejiang Party Secretary Wang Hao before participating in the first conference on Hong Kong-Zhejiang partnership. Lee also witnessed the establishment of the Zhejiang-Hong Kong Cooperation Conference mechanism, with the two governments signing a memorandum. It covers 13 important areas of cooperation and 51 projects, including Belt and Road projects, trade and commercial investment, finance and aviation. The CE said the establishment of the cooperation mechanism encourages more Zhejiang businesses to make use of Hong Kong's role as a superconnector, allowing them to seek new overseas markets. Lee later traveled to Ningbo via high-speed rail, where he visited a number of businesses set up locally by Hong Kongers. He then took part in a gathering of Hong Kong entrepreneurs of Ningbo descent, organized by the daughter of the late shipping magnate Pao Yukong. The CE noted on social media that he will attend a Hong Kong investment promotional forum on Friday and hopes to work with Ningbo businesses to generate new productive forces. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
South Korean prosecutors have indicted former Liberal President Moon Jae-in on bribery charges, saying that a budget airline gave his son-in-law a lucrative no-show job during Moon's term in office. Moon's indictment adds him to a long list of South Korean leaders who face trials or scandals at the close of their terms or after leaving office. Prosecutors allege that Moon, who served as president from 2017 to 2022, received bribes totaling 217 million won from Lee Sang-jik, founder of the budget carrier Thai E-Star Jet. These were received in the form of wages, housing expenses, and other financial assistance provided to Moon's then son-in-law from 2018 to 2020. Moon's daughter and her husband divorced in 2021. Lee was also indicted on charges of paying bribes to Moon and committing breaches of trust. U.S. President Donald Trump praised Elon Musk for his work on the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, after Musk announced he'll be spending less time in Washington and more time running Tesla amid the electric car maker's disappointing results.
And he really helped the country, saved us a lot of money. And I heard him say that he'll start easing, which is always, he was always at this time going to ease out. And when he goes back to Tesla, that'll be taken care of. He makes a great product. It's a great car. It's great everything. Starlink is great. What he does is good. He's doing medical things that are amazing. And we have to, at some point, let him go and do that.
U.S. President Donald Trump has lashed out at Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, saying he's prolonging the killing field. Zelensky pushed back on ceding Crimea to Russia as part of a potential peace plan in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Tracy Furness has more.
U.S. President Donald Trump told reporters that he did not know if he would meet with Zelensky or other European leaders to discuss the Russia-Ukraine war while in Italy for Pope Francis's funeral this weekend, but revealed that dealing with Zelensky was harder than dealing with the Russians.
I don't know that he's going to the funeral or not, but I just hope he gets this thing solved, because we're losing about, think of this, 5,000. I was saying 2,500, and everyone was telling me that's low. 5,000 soldiers are being killed every week. They're Russian and Ukrainian. They're not Americans, but they're Russian, but they're people. And they're humans. I think we have a deal with Russia. We have to get a deal with Zelensky, and I hope that Zelensky, I thought it might be easier to deal with Zelensky. So far it's been harder, but that's okay.
Trump called Zelensky's pushback on calls to cede Crimea to Russia very harmful to talks. Trump posted on social media, "Nobody is asking Zelensky to recognize Crimea as Russian territory, but if he wants Crimea, why didn't he fight for it 11 years ago when it was handed over to Russia without a shot being fired?" Meanwhile, a large-scale Russian missile and drone attack hit 4 residential neighborhoods in Kyiv overnight, killing at least 9 people and injuring another 70, including 6 children. The attack began around 1 a.m. The Kyiv City Military Administration said Russia struck Kyiv with drones and ballistic missiles. At least 42 people were hospitalized. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Protesters gathered in the Indian capital, New Delhi, Wednesday following an attack in Kashmir, which killed at least 26 people, most of them tourists. Police called the incident a terror attack and blamed militants fighting against Indian rule. While senior ministers and officials have not yet provided details of Tuesday's attack, a large section of India's media and political commentators blamed Islamabad for it without citing evidence. Officials said 24 of the people killed were Indian tourists. 1 was from Nepal and 1 was a local tour guide. It's one of the deadliest attacks in the Himalayan region. Kashmir Resistance, a previously unknown militant group, claimed responsibility for the attack on social media. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.